Bella. Our last speaker, our last discussant is Dr. Rogelio Alicor Panao. Dr. Panao is an assistant professor at the Department of Political Science, UP Diliman, where he teaches introductory courses in quantitative political analysis and legislative dynamics. Among his research interests are executive and legislative relations, political institutions, and event history modeling. He was part of the team organized by the UP Center for Integrative and Development Studies that documented and consolidated the multi-sectoral assessment of President Benigno Aquino's key result areas. Please welcome Dr. Panao.
So, good afternoon. I believe I'm the youngest in the panel. My area is actually legislative dynamics. And when talking about industrial policy, I want everyone's, let's leave that for later probably. Yes. I invite you to look at the importance of institutions in crafting industrial policy. Professor Aquino, my former dean at the School of Labor and Industrial Relations, talk about industrial policy. I digress though that government has no concrete industrial policy. Probably they called it using different terms. That there has to be a policy, I suppose. And the question now is, in this presentation given by Dean Aquino, how in concrete terms, for example, is industrial policy going to be charted in the light especially of the Philippines' current political institutions? In the AER paper, which I suppose you already have a copy, it's a framework paper. And they explicitly raise several points which themselves may tell us that institutions may pose hindrance or challenges, especially in the crafting of what we may call an industrial policy. Consider this: term limits for elected officials. The president is entitled to what? A single non-renewable 6-year term. What can you do in 6 years? By now, we are so preoccupied with what the president has so far achieved. And it ends there. Term limits per se is a disincentive. It discourages elected officials from taking crucial risks, especially those that have effects that take place in the long run. Why? Number one, of course they don't want successors to get credits for the policies they impose. Second, what can you do exactly, especially in your lame duck years, like now, at the moment? Second, there is need to concretize industrial policy into some form of legislative enactments, for example, or something that may be institutionalized and adopted in surviving administrations. Certainly we want policies that will be observed and respected by succeeding administrations, right? If it's an industrial policy, it should have a lifespan more than 6 years, the president's term, right? And also, as mentioned, in that paper, if you look at it, most of the examples given were states that pursued a development state framework. What are these? These are states that either through a strong bureaucracy, strongly intervened in private and public relations, as well as states who, through an authoritarian leader, were able to manage its developmental policy. Now, of course, you don't want that, and it's not even allowed in our current constitution. Let me ask you, for example, most of us here belong to progressive organizations. Are you willing to sacrifice some of your freedom for a truly long-lasting industrial policy? To be an effective state, you have to have state capacity and state autonomy. What is autonomy? That means the state. And state institutions can impose mechanisms that are impervious to external and internal oppositions that include civil society. A strong state, Singapore, for example. And it must have capacity. The state has to have a capacity, meaning it has to have mechanisms to actually concretize these goals. Again, question, are you willing to sacrifice some of your freedoms, just like in Singapore? Strong state, right? You cannot have a strong state with opposing forces. That is not strong. The government would just cater and give in and accommodate society. That is not a strong state. Now, an industrial policy may require giving incentives or priority to certain industries. That is not answered. What are those industries specifically? For a long time, I suppose, some of us here, even those included in the panel, have sat in committees and held positions in government that are involved in policy making. I suppose we had contemplated on these policies even before we sat here. What are those? That was not answered. And what specific sectors do we intend to target? We cannot just say we need an industrial policy because I think all administrations, all governments under all presidents conceive a policy of sorts. And if we just end here saying we should gather everyone and decide, go to a dialogue, 6 years would be over, and we would achieve nothing. Remember, this is a window of opportunity for all of us because of the upcoming elections, right? In 2016. Now, the quality of institutions, I believe, is not something we leave by chance or to our political leaders. Of course, if we go by the dictum that sovereignty resides in the people, then we should assert this as among the social obligations we should demand from the state as part of the social contract, right? And of course, the means to achieve that would vary, and again, would entail sacrifice in concrete terms, probably including constitutional revision. Because when you change your term limits for the president, that is not simply doable by amendment. It requires revision because it involves changes in the structure of government. And then, again, sacrificing some of your freedoms. How far would you want to go? Now, as for President Noynoy Aquino's achievements thus far, my former teacher in econometrics in Japan used to lecture about the importance of lagging variables. When you're dealing with macroeconomic variables, she said, you have to lag. Meaning, for example, this is an administration, it has certain policies. You cannot expect policies to happen a year later. So you have to wait 6 or 5 years. Now, the economic achievements we are experiencing, or that we have experienced in the previous years, count backwards 5 years earlier. Who was the president then? Lagging. The economic policies being that were implemented during this administration. When will we see the effect? Probably 5 to 6 years hence, right? So the administration cannot claim all of that. But yes, I'm not naming names. Okay? I'm just saying a fact. Okay. But just the same, this is what I want to point out actually. The tuwid na daan, I don't think that is a vision. How can you have a vision in tuwid na daan? This is a statement, yes. But if there is any achievement in this administration, I think it's efforts towards curbing corruption. The CIDS conducted a project which I was a part of, we asked sectors to rate the president's, or rather to assess the president's achievement through key results areas. What are these KRAs, key results areas? These are indicators that were laid down in what we consider as the President's Social Contract. It's part of the Tweet na Daan platform. And the overall assessment is that don't be surprised. Actually, they gave sectors. Sectors here mean members of civil society, the academe, as well as members of the business sector, and government as well. So they were government, members of the government who spoke. This is their rating. They gave a passing mark to the president on his efforts to curb corruption. Not necessarily in the economic part, okay? But one thing I'm sure, they gave a passing mark to the president. They gave a passing mark to his efforts to curb corruption. I think the greater challenge for all of us here is how we can sustain those achievements. Because again, institutional danger, right? The president has a non-renewable term of 6 years. And what can you do exactly in 6 years? The challenge for all of us as voters is to ensure that those achievements will be sustained, respected, and observed by succeeding administrations.